Welcome back. Ed Martin here on the Pro America Report. And as I mentioned earlier, I was really looking forward to this interview. Allie Beth Stuckey is, she's a podcaster. She hosts over at Blaze Media. It's called Relatable. And they talk, it's not politics. It's some politics, but it's also cultural and theological. And she's really kind of carved out a niche in a way, a big niche. She's talking to young people, conservatives, and it's she's a new mom about a year ago, a little bit more than a year ago, which is very cool. And she wrote a book. Her first book is called You're Not Enough, and That's Okay, Escaping the Toxic Culture of Self-Love. So welcome, Allie Beth, to the program. Congratulations on your voice, which has really been getting louder and louder. It's nice to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, hey, I got to tell you a quick story. I'll see if I can tell it fast enough. There's a famous AA speech. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous are not supposed to record their speech, but it's a speech by Anthony Hopkins, which he allowed to be released. And he tells about when he was in AA and the first time, and he went to the first meeting. And then the next day, two of the guys from AA came to him and said, hey, let's go out to lunch. And on the way out to lunch, he was all sure, he was moved that he had found AA, and he's been in AA now for 50 years. And he said to one of the guys, I feel so inadequate. And the guy, big, rough, tough guy, looked at him and said, what if you are inadequate? And the point is, it's like your book title is, you know, everybody's searching to make themselves perfect. It seems what the culture wants, but it doesn't work, right? You can't get there this side of heaven. So, but it must be even harder, Allie Beth, if I can say, on young women, right? The culture really puts pressure on them. Am I feeling that wrong?
Yes, no, you're absolutely correct. This idea that in order to be happy, you have to convince yourself that you are enough actually ends up putting pressure on people rather than alleviating you from pressure, which is what a lot of these, what I call these self-love gurus, are trying to do. In the face of very real insecurity and feelings of inadequacy, the self-love gurus and the self-help authors and even the motivational speakers and fitness experts, they are trying to help women by saying, hey, you don't need to feel that way. You're perfect the way you are, and you can't love other people until you love yourself, and you're enough. The problem is we know that we're not. We know that we're not sufficient for our own happiness. We're not enough to be all the things that we need at once or all the things that other people need at once. And so in trying to convince ourselves of our sufficiency, of our perfection, and constantly falling short, we actually end up more disappointed than we were before. And so this book is about embracing the fact that we're not enough to be all that we need. We're not the center of our own universe. The most important thing in life is not loving yourself. It's actually being a part of the world around you and reattaching ourselves to the values, to the institutions, and to the causes that have helped America be the greatest country in the world, but also have helped human beings thrive, like faith, like family, like hard work, like volunteering, like all the things that help the world around us be better and grow. We've become so hyper individualized and self-centered, especially these younger generations, because we think that we're enough, that it's actually, I believe, making us more miserable.
We're talking with Allie Beth Stuckey, and the book is Sentinel Books. I want to make sure I tell everybody the details. Sentinel Books. It just came out about 2 weeks ago, a little bit less than 2 weeks ago, and so you can find it anywhere books are sold. And again, the title is You're Not Enough, and That's Okay: Escaping the Toxic Culture of Self-Love. So, Allie Beth, the politics though, like in the last 4 years, it's clear that there's been an acceleration, at least in the mainstream media, and I'd say on social media, of this sort of anger, you know, and somehow everybody got okay. You know, if you hate Trump, you can express it, and if you love Trump, you can be angry at people that don't. And it's kind of more anger than ever. That's got to be a factor that's hard to manage, because anger is almost impossible to reason with.
Well, I think that this all goes back to the premise of my book, and that is that we have made ourselves our own gods. And when you make yourself your own God, you make yourself your own arbiter of morality, your own decider of truth. And that kind of equates to this postmodern worldview that I think that we are seeing fully manifest itself in some of the riots and the chaos that we're seeing across the country right now. Godless, purposeless people who feel like the only cause and purpose they've ever been a part of is this angry anarchy. And when you think that you are the most important in the world, you are your own God, you're the center of your own universe, then you immediately become very resentful against people who disagree with you, very angry toward people who disagree with you. Not just, hey, this person has a different idea, but when we take on, for example, this idea of my truth, it's my truth or your truth, therefore you can't argue with me because it's mine and my truth. It becomes almost a violation when someone like Donald Trump or anyone else stands for something or says something that I disagree with. And so in this world of what I call trendy narcissism, all level of anger is justified. And we're seeing what that worldview looks like in real time in America's biggest democratic cities. And it just doesn't look good. This narcissistic worldview ends in misery and destruction.
So, and again, the book is called You're Not Enough, and That's Okay. Allie Beth Stuckey, and again, wherever books are sold, the Sentinel Books is who published it. And yet, what I want to ask you and what I want to say, and I'll see what you think. It feels to me like as the TV shows us and tries to agitate us on kind of both sides, right and left, and get everybody agitated, then resolve the agitation, they'll come back again. Same thing on Twitter and Facebook. What I want to say, what I believe is we're actually closer to really wonderful, positive times. The technology is better than ever for healthcare, for all kinds of things. The economy can be better when we get through this pandemic, which was a false start. And even the sort of fundamentals, people are people. I kind of feel like I'm more hopeful, and most people say I'm crazy because we're supposed to say we're divided. How do you, when you talk, you've got a voice that especially younger people are drawn to and listening to, and your podcast relatable. Do you feel that? Do you feel optimistic about where we are and what's coming, or do you feel like that we're still in a darkness? I had David Horowitz on. David Horowitz is like, oh no, it's going to be a battle for the next 25 years. It's the left isn't going to stop. I feel more optimistic. What about you?
I'm glad that you feel optimistic. I would love to feel optimistic. Now, well, let me tell you, I'm pessimistic or I would like to think realistic for the next few years. It does look like it's going to be a battle. I just don't see any reason why the far left would let up. I mean, it's truly this anti-American sentiment to where they believe that, America doesn't just need to be reformed, but it needs to be destroyed. It's like every left-wing cultural revolution for the past 100 years that has been waged in the name of compassion and justice and ends in destruction and suffering. Because they want to go scorched earth. They want to get back to, in the same way that they did in Pol Pot's Cambodia, year zero, and the Cultural Revolution in Mao's China. It is the same kind of thing. And all those revolutions were, quote, successful in that they did tear down their dissents and they destroyed the institutions that they wanted to destroy. They just ended up in a bunch of suffering and starvation and death. So are we going to repeat history here in the United States? Are we going to let that revolution wage its war until we get to the point of people having to realize, like they did in Eastern Germany, hey, communism is not great? I hope not. I hope America is different, as we have proven to be different so often throughout our history. I hope that we have enough people right now who know the history of the past 100 years to be able to say no. And I do think that there is hope for my generation of conservatives who are raising children right now, who see the craziness going on in the world and who realize, hey, we can't take for granted the next 20 years. We can't trust institutions anymore, even our churches. We can't trust our public schools to teach our kids worldview issues. We cannot take this for granted. I think after the Berlin Wall fell, a bunch of people thought, it's so obvious that communism doesn't work. We don't have to teach our kids that anymore. We don't have to teach our kids the importance of liberty and justice for all and the importance of capitalism. Everyone knows that. It's so obvious. We'll never go back to communism. And here we are, 30 years later, and we're having the same kind of conversations. And so I just hope maybe all of this reminds us that we can't take it for granted, that we have to teach our kids the things that we want to teach them, the values that we want to teach them. We're seeing a bunch of valueless youths right now waging war in the name of something that they don't even understand. So in that sense, I do have hope for the future generations that we are getting to see the leftist worldview played out right now. But I think it's going to be a fight until we get there.
Yeah. Well, I'm going back with, that the famous chair that Washington sat in, and Franklin at the end of the Constitutional Convention says, I've been looking at that sun, wondering if it was rising or setting, and I just think that it always feels darkest before dawn is when it's not setting. But we'll have you back on. We'll keep talking about this. Allie Beth Stuckey, I appreciate it very much you coming on. You're Not Enough, and that's okay. Escaping the Toxic Culture of Self-Love. You can get it anywhere books are sold. And Allie Beth Stuckey also, as she's over at Blaze Media on the podcast Relatable, very popular, very smart, and very, what's the word to say? It gets you thinking and talking about the right subject. So thanks for the time, Allie Beth. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll take a quick break and be right back. It's Ed Martin here on the Pro America Report. Back in a moment.